Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software, and in today's session, we're going to be continuing the HIVE CMS Admin Learning Series, focusing very heavily today on request administration. Now, as always, of course, we love when you guys throw questions into the questions window here in GoToWebinar when we're presenting live. And of course, if you want to throw questions into the YouTube recording after the fact, you can throw it into the questions window down below or comment section. But also, as always, of course, these webinars are recorded, and so you can go to YouTube, to our channel, and review these in the future as a refresher for how to do this particular topic, in this case, request administration. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk about today's topic in detail. So you've been notified that a new HIVE request came through, right? It's kind of like a mission impossible sometimes. This your mission should you choose to accept it. So you can either accept or decline these requests. You can work with them. You can change the status and communicate with the original requester. And the important thing here is that users, of course, they're the ones who are typically placing these requests. They can do so through HIVE if you've allowed it to be the case. We talked about the settings for HIVE in a previous session and talked about how you can redirect the HIVE request engine. And of course, the goal for this particular feature, this requesting system, is to provide an easy way for any of your HIVE users to ask for more content or potentially modifications to existing content or whatever, asking for new information through this request system. The important thing, of course, is that you as an admin know how to interact with these requests once they're submitted. So I'm going to talk in detail today about how to deal with requests. A little bit about what they are, you may already know, but a little bit about what the requests are and how to work with these requests within the HIVE ecosystem. Now, if you've taken the HIVE request system and targeted it to your own internal request engine, maybe you're using Zendesk, maybe you're using something else, and you've already targeted that, well then of course this workflow today doesn't apply to you. But if you are using the HIVE request system because maybe you don't already have your own internal ticketing system, then that's fantastic. Today's session is going to be very relevant. So we're going to talk about four major things. First of all, what is a HIVE request and how do users create them? I want to show you how to access the existing requests that are in the system. We are going to take a minor look at some of the admin controls that you have for the request system. And also, we're going to take a look at some of the request details and talking about some commenting that you can do. And since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, we are going to be talking about this live inside the environment. So first off, what is a HIVE request and how does it get created? Well, if your settings are configured appropriately in the HIVE CMS organization settings area and you have requests turned on, users will see when they're signed into the HIVE CMS environment here, they will see on the left-hand side the ability to add a request. So they can click this button and it will take them using whatever their standard web browser is, their default web browser. It will take them to the ctcsoftware.com portal requests area. And so if I was to click this, it's going to go to my default browser, which is not Chrome. I'm going to show this to you in Chrome. So it takes you effectively right to here, to your requests, my requests, and right here is a HIVE requests page. You can see I've got a request that I've recently posted, well, recently-ish. It hasn't been touched yet. It's still marked as new. No one's touched it, and that's totally okay. Within this My Request system, as an end user, I can create a new request, or even as an admin, I can make a request. This request system here, the whole purpose is to create sort of a tracked communication system between end users and admins in the system. So I can create a new request. I can give it some kind of a name, let's just see here. What do I need? Updated level of development documentation, if I could spell. And maybe the priority is low. Maybe it's not really required by any time in the near future, though I can still set maybe like some due by date. Maybe it's like a month out or something. So the 24th is a Saturday. Let's do the 23rd of next month. I can select a library that I believe this is associated to. Maybe I'd choose like standards and procedures if that's maybe something that's my level of development documentation. I can attach, if I want to, a file. Maybe I've downloaded something that's the new level of development documentation. I can attach this as an end user. If units of measure are relevant, if this is a Revit family, I can associate that. And I can also give a description about this. So maybe if my request was about a piece of content, like Revit content or AutoCAD content, I could say, hey, I need a new, this kind of a furniture, or I need a new air handling unit of this manufacturer and model number, or I need a new civil style definition for my AutoCAD Civil 3D environment. Like whatever it is, I can give a description, a subject, a priority. I can choose a library that I believe this particular content belongs in, or I can leave it blank. That's fine too. Give a description, and I can attach a file that relates to this. This is the effect of a request. And when I ultimately hit save here, it is going to log this to the system, in this case, in my request, and anybody who's associated to this library as a library manager will be notified that there's a new request for them. Or if you have a request admin user set up, then that user can also be notified. And if you have neither of those, then anybody who's an organizational admin can be notified. And those notifications for new requests go out as emails to your HIVE user account. So if you are set up in here as a HIVE user and you have those rights, it emails you. So in my case, since I am an admin, I actually just got an email saying, hey, a new request exists here for a library that you're a manager of, because I basically requested it from myself, apparently, which is fine. That's totally good. Any other end users making requests, it would, of course, they would make a request, and then it would notify me as a manager of the library if I'm a manager of that library. So that's how a request gets created. And then, you know, how do you as an admin access HIVE requests? Well, the important thing is, you know, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time in the CTC portal in the first place. And so the web address here is, you know, ctcsoftware.com, and you sign into the portal. You can use any web-enabled device, your smartphone, a tablet, your kid's Chromebook, your desktop computer, it doesn't matter. All of this management for these requests and for anything in the HIVE portal happens from the ctcsoftware.com website. And so once you're signed in, we're going to take a look here quickly at admin controls. Like, what do you need to kind of administer some of these requests? And so I'm going to jump back to the portal here since I'm already signed in. I'm already on the requests portion. And by default here, I'm looking at my requests. That's the current kind of path that I'm associated to and where users will typically go. However, there's two other sub-tabs here, two other, I guess I'll call it drawers in this environment. One of them is the all requests, which shows me requests for the entire organization, where I'm probably going to be doing the vast majority of my management. And there's also settings. And before we get too far down the rabbit hole of working with requests themselves, it's always a good idea to understand the settings for your organization. There's not a lot of settings here in the HIVE environment, but there's a couple of really important ones that I think you probably want to know about. Now, if you're an admin and you do already have your own internal ticketing system, you may want to disable the HIVE requests portion for end users inside of here. So if you're an org admin, you might want to disable this request system, and that way users aren't going here expecting answers when they should be going to your own request system. And if that's the case as well, I would also recommend then on the CMS tab specifically, let me get this to refresh here. There is also settings for the organization over there. And within those settings, you can redirect, here we go, settings for the organization. And at the top of this organizational settings, you can enable content requests, which effectively turns off and on this button right here in the CMS. If it's turned on, and if this is left empty, then it will target CTC's HIVE request system. But if you do have your own sort of internal request system, you can plug that in here. And when a user clicks on the HIVE add request button, it'll actually target your internal ticketing system instead of the HIVE request. So if you wanted to circumvent this system and that's what you care about, well, that's the most important information. But let's assume you don't circumvent that and you want to be using the request system within Hive. That's what this webinar here is about. So here in Hive Requests, the other settings that exist here is to enable voting on requests. We'll see the effect of that in just a minute. This check or uncheck is simply a yes or no, and it just enables the simple upvote or thumbs up on a particular request. Also, do you want to enable comment visibility for everybody? This means anybody else, whether they're the originator of a request or not, they can see and work with the comments a bit. So do you want that or not? Sometimes you may just want it to be the communication between you and the original requester and not let everybody else see the communication. So you might turn off the comment visibility if that's something you want. You can also control here just how much notification you get. So email notifications here on new requests means that it notifies you, the admin, that there's a new request in the system. If you do request status updates here, if you have that checked, then every time you change a status, which we'll take a look at in a minute here, the end user gets notified that the status has changed, which is important, especially when you complete something, when you mark it as complete. It's good to let them know, and that's just a quick, easy way to do it, though some of you may choose not to have it be very verbose. That's fine. And the final one here is on new request comments. And for me, this one gets a bit heavy, so I tend to turn this off for the whole company. This way, when there's new comments, it doesn't email everybody associated to the request that there's comments. So I personally have that unchecked. And of course, every time you make any major changes to these settings, you would save them, and then that locks them in. So now let's take a look at some of the other requesting details here, specifically focusing on comments, but also focusing on a few of the other controls in the system. In here, if you go to all requests, this is where you, the admin, can work with everybody else's requests in this environment. You'll notice that I have across the top here some different status settings, and I can filter for different status inside of here. So I have 9 new requests that haven't really been touched or claimed by anybody. So in some cases, like descriptions are being cut short, or reception desk was needed by somebody, or David over here was just testing this for comments, which I probably will come back and delete later on because that's kind of unnecessary. This is a good one. Lab equipment was needed. There's an MRI machine that was needed here in this environment, and maybe I want to take a look at that. So if I want to take this particular issue and work with it, I can click on it and start to see some of the details about this and see what kind of files maybe this person has attached. But in this case, there aren't any files. So maybe what I want to do here is take this and take a look at the comments intentionally, maybe add a comment here about some of this particular thing, like this is a great request. Can you please provide some manufacturer guidance or cut sheets or something, whatever, right? So specification sheets maybe, whatever. So if I ask for this, then I can comment this back, I can post this, and then maybe I change right now just to let them know that there's a change to this immediately so they can actually respond back. I can change the status here from new to, I don't know, pending or something. So then that'll actually throw it in my pending bucket, and I can focus some efforts over here on pending requests. So let me just go find this real quick. Lab equipment needed. Let's just swap this to pending. It'll actually pull it out of this list and throw it into the pending list. So those numbers will change once I refresh my page here. But again, I can filter for these. I can see what's in progress, a little bit about who's communicating around that. I can see what's completed or if there's rejected requests or whatever. We don't actually use this very heavily here at CTC, of course, in our little test company, more for testing the functionality. So you'll see we don't have a lot of completed requests here. But normally in your company, you'd want to keep, of course, your new pending, approved, or in progress down to a minimum, and then see your completed or rejected list numbers grow quite high. We have some customers who are using this very, very heavily for their internal requests, and they've got hundreds of requests that cycle through here a week. And for them, this works really well, and hopefully for you it can as well. Now you can also see here, if you take a look at some of these other controls, I just used the one for posting a comment. Maybe you want to watch something or other users want to watch something. When you subscribe to it as there's status updates to things, you start to get those notifications that something is completed or new comments or whatever your settings are as well. So you can kind of see that. If you want to just expand it out and see what the information is, of course, there's a view request that pops up the information window. As an admin, you as an admin have the ability to delete any request in the system. For example, down here where there's that testing environment, I could delete that test request for comments here. So I could delete this, for example, and then that would remove that from the system. End users themselves, for their own personal requests, they can delete their own request if they want to. And you can, of course, delete it if it's a trash request. The last one that I didn't point at yet was this upvote over here. So this upvote, this is kind of nice. Maybe somebody has posted a request and everybody can see all the requests by going here. If somebody is requesting new standard documentation for printing to a PDF, great. Somebody else is upvoting that. Maybe a lot of people are upvoting that. You can actually sort based on most upvotes. And then based on that, you can handle the most popular questions sooner than later. Of course, you can also sort this by least upvotes or oldest first, so you can get the oldest stuff out of the way, or newest. Sort by who created this particular question. The default, though, is just putting the newest request at the top of the list. That's the default for requests. So really, that's all there is to requests. The important thing is that you know where to go to review HIVE requests and be able to interact with this a bit. In this case, you can quickly see that there's some attachments to some of these here, but within this, you can comment, you can have conversations back and forth with the end users. You can see how many people are kind of keeping an eye on it. Of course, you can see the details and get access to any of the attachments that are associated to the request itself. So I haven't seen any questions roll through the questions window. If you do have questions, now would be a perfect time to throw them in. But for those of you who don't have any questions, I want to say thank you. We always, appreciate when you show up live to the webinar and have the opportunity, at least, to interact with us. And we do look forward to seeing you in future CTC webinars. Certainly, take a look at the ctcsoftware.com events page, where you can see more webinars that we have up and coming. We also encourage you to check out our YouTube channel, where these recorded webinars all get posted. And from there, of course, you can subscribe and you hit the little notification bell and whatnot, and that way you can know when there are new recorded webinars that are posted to that channel, so you can review them in the future if you can't make it to the live event. With that, we're going to jump into questions and answers. And I'm still not seeing any questions roll through the questions window, so that's fine. We're going to probably just shut it down then. So one final thank you to all of you who showed up live, and we do look forward to seeing you in future CTC webinars. Have a fantastic day.